everyone, good evening. You're watching The Money Show, NSE Prosperous India Special. I'm Mubina Kabasi and this is the show which is all about your money and your personal finance. Today on the show, we are going to be discussing critical illnesses. The reason being, on the 2nd of June, we do honor those patients and those individuals who have been able to battle the big C, the dreaded monster that's cancer, and have emerged as survivors. Yes, it's National Cancer Survivors Day, and that's what we at ET would like to honor as well. But of course, keeping it in line with personal finance, how can you prepare yourself when such dreaded critical illnesses hit you? Well, here on ET Now, we have the answers, and critical illness policy and coverage is something that we're going to tell you all about. So if you have any questions or queries with respect to critical illnesses, how you can cover for that, how can you save for that, and how can you ensure that on the occurrence, in the eventuality of such dreaded illnesses, you are adequately financed and ready to take the same heads on. Send in your questions and queries. You can call in live on the phone line. 67549498 is the number that you can call in for any questions or queries with respect to health insurance. Today we have with us Sumit Rai, MD and CEO of Edelweiss Tokio, live to talk about the very topic of critical illnesses. Sumit, thank you for joining in. You know, we have, unfortunately, diseases and illnesses like cancer have only been increasing in number. In fact, a recent report has, recently revealed that the number of cancer patients in the last 5 years have been more than they have been in the last 50 odd years. That's the sort of numbers we are staring at. And in such a scenario, while of course there are all sort of emotional turmoils that one does go through, it's even more important that you at least have the financial bit of it sorted. And I think that's what critical illnesses do. Critical illness insurance coverage rather do. So to start off with, Sumit, if you could just explain to our viewers, give them a gist, introduce them to what exactly a critical insurance policy is and what does it cover.
Thank you, Mubina, and first of all, let me thank you for having me on the show. Critical illness policies, by the definition, by the very name, mean that these are policies that cover specific type of critical illnesses. Critical illnesses in these cases being illnesses that have significant impact on the health of a human being, usually take a long time to be cured, and are also in some senses expensive to manage over a period of time. So critical illnesses are diseases like that. If I give you some examples, so for example, cardiac disease would be an example of a critical illness, cancer would be an example of a critical illness, and so on and so forth. So this is what critical illness is defined as, and currently, as you said, the lifestyle and other challenges that we have in the country and in our life in general means that episodes of such critical illness across board seem to be increasing significantly from earlier on. I think the stress of our day-to-day work combined with more sedentary lifestyle, I think all of those are adding up to creating what you might almost call a crisis of critical illness. So yeah, it's something that as insurers we are seeing a lot of. We are seeing a lot of increase, as you mentioned, in the episode of critical illnesses. And so there's a lot of focus right now on saying how can we help society manage this better. As you rightly mentioned, critical illnesses come with two kind of loads. There is the load of emotions or the trauma that one goes through with the critical illness. That's one part of it, and that's very little that actually we can do about it. But certainly the financial load that comes with it is something that we are trying to see whether we can kind of help alleviate the financial problems that come with the critical illness.
Okay, well, yes, at least the financial part of it must be sorted to leave you only thinking about how you're emotionally going to get through that disease. And, in fact, an Edelweiss Tokio live study itself shows that nearly 75% patients are either uninsured or are inadequately insured to pay for cancer care. So it's high time that this mentality changes, and it's really simple, and Sumit will, of course, over the course of the next 20 minutes prove that certainly this is not an insurance coverage, that it's a complicated one to understand. It's something that's very simple. So Sumit, if I may ask you now, who must essentially take this insurance coverage? Is it someone who is at risk, of, attaining a critical illnesses due to hereditary reasons or whatsoever, or someone who's young enough, maybe 15 and 20 years of age as well, should take a critical illness insurance?
So actually that depends. Certainly people who have a predisposition, genetic predisposition or family history predisposition towards such kind of diseases certainly should consider it. But to my mind, Mubina, the way things are at this point of time, we should all think about buying such coverage. Very often I talk to a lot of my friends, and very often the mistake that gets made is, I've got Mediclaim coverage and so on and so forth, and so I'm okay. Unfortunately, what happens is Mediclaim takes care only of, let's say, your hospitalization expenses. It really doesn't take care of post-hospitalization expenses like medicines, being at home, the loss of income that you face if you're at home. All of those situations also occur, and Mediclaim really doesn't take care of that. So I think it is something that anybody who's at a working age, anybody who faces risk of loss of income due to a critical illness, should seriously consider. Let me give you another example, and we don't think of it very often. Of the top 5 cancers that are currently prevalent in India, 3 are cancers that actually occur by and large mostly in women. Now that is something that we don't think about very often. Women still are not very large buyers of critical illness covers. So, the point that I'm simply trying to make is, I don't think purchase of critical illness should be restricted to any particular demography or any particular set of people who might be more exposed to risk. I think in personal financial services, we often say insurance forms the base of all your personal financial planning across your life, and you should devote maybe 3 to 5, in some cases up to 10% of your total savings to insurance, for the simple reason that if something does happen to you, everything that you've done in your life, every money that you've saved in your life could very quickly get wiped away. So my recommendation would be, irrespective of your age, earlier you start, the better it might be, because these are long-term coverages, especially the ones that come from life, and therefore you get the advantage of cheaper coverage in the early stages. Also, what I am increasingly seeing is people at 35, 40, 45, getting struck by these kind of critical illnesses. So, my personal belief is that these are covers meant for every section of the society, and at every age. Certainly, once you start working, you should be covering yourself for it.
Okay, all right. So age agnostic at this point of time for critical illnesses coverage, and the grim reality is that nowadays we've been seeing a lot of young people as well get afflicted by deadly diseases. Okay, but again, a reminder for all our viewers, if you want to join in live on the show and ask any sort of questions with respect to critical illnesses coverage, its insurance policy, how you should go about it, this is a show where you should call in on 67549498. It's the number that you can dial in, and Sumit Rai will be right here to answer your question. First up, we have a question from Santosh Gupta, which we received via email earlier. He asks, what sort of tax benefit does one get if you pay premium on critical illness policy versus when you pay Mediclaim? Sumit, let's go across to the question for you. From what I understand, I know there are limits to which you can claim, up to which you can claim tax benefits.
Correct. So under Section 80D, you can claim up to rupees 25,000 in terms of premium paid towards medical insurance. Both, let's say, your Mediclaim coverage that you might be purchasing, as well as any critical illness claim that you will purchase, both of them up to 25,000 rupees are covered under Section 80D.
Up to 25,000 paid on an annual basis for both critical illnesses and Mediclaim can be allowed under Section 80D. Both of them come under one section, that's 80D. And of course, do remember, you just heard out Sumit as well talking about critical illnesses versus Mediclaim, which we will try and cover over the course of the next few minutes as well. Okay, Radha Mohan has sent in a question. Radha says, I would like to buy a critical illness insurance cover for my mother. I want to understand if this is a preemptive cover. Am I to buy the cover before detection of any major illness? Also, if that is the case, how am I supposed to decide on the quantum of the cover? My mother is 57, currently has cholesterol, but no other major ailments till date. Sumit, help out Radha. What should he do when deciding for a quantum of cover with respect to his mom?
So two things, Radha. A, as you've rightly pointed out earlier, critical illness covers do tend to be preemptive. So you have to usually purchase them before the first episode of a critical illness kind of besets you. So that's one thing that you have to do. In terms of what is the coverage amount that one should look at, that's a very interesting question actually. What is the most expensive critical illness that you could be faced with? For example, a treatment for cancer, a basic kind of early stage cancer could cost you anywhere between 5 lakhs to 12, 13 lakhs at one go. Now, I'm not talking in this necessarily about all the post, hospitalization kind of treatments. All of those will add extra. So it is my belief at this point of time that, when it comes to critical coverage, you should look at the cost of what is the treatment today across most of the critical illnesses. On an average, I would say certainly anything less than 10 to 15 lakh in today's time, if you want to go to a good hospital and get the best treatment for yourself, for your loved ones, your near and dear ones, 10 to 15 lakh certainly is the minimum. Personally, I would advise you to always have a little bit, always more than the minimum. So I would say around 20 to 25 lakhs certainly is something that everybody should look at. Because especially as you get older, treatments tend to become more expensive, more elongated, end up causing more expenditure. So you should look at coverage. Your mother is 58. You should certainly look at a 20 odd lakh kind of a coverage for sure, if not more.
Okay, well, always go for more than the minimum. Don't go for the bare minimum when selecting a coverage amount. That's what Sumit is basically recommending. And of course, the costs are only going to increase from here on. There's no doubt about that, especially when it comes to medical costs. Okay, Alok Gupta from Indore joins us now on the phone line. Hi, Alok. Good evening. Thank you for calling in. What's your question?
Good evening. I have a regular insurance, health insurance policy for each member of my family.
Okay.
Myself, I'm aged 50 years, and my wife and my two children. Now, last year, to increase the sum issue by opting for a super top-up policy. Now, what happened in this was my wife's as well as her daughter's was rejected due to thalassemia. Now, what should I do so that my coverage increases?
Okay. Sumit, if you've got his question entirely or if you don't have any counter questions, could you help out Alok?
Yeah, I got the question. It's a very interesting question. It's rather a unique situation. Alok, in this case, my recommendation to you would be to first speak to your current insurer, the one with whom you do have a current coverage. Thalassemia is a rather unique occurrence, and I think thalassemia is something that insurance companies deal on a case-on-case basis. So you will, I think, have to kind of go back to your insurer and see whether they can help you with it in terms of increasing coverage and what kind of cost it would incur. In case your current insurer is unable to help you, because some insurers may not be able to cover the current insurer, the one with whom you do have a current coverage. Thalassemia is a rather unique occurrence, and I think thalassemia is something that insurance companies deal on a case-on-case basis. So you will, I think, have to kind of go back to your insurer and see whether they can help you with it in terms of increasing coverage and what kind of cost it would incur. In case your current insurer is unable to help you, because some insurers may not be able to cover thalassemia, like I said, it's not a very common thing. In that case, I would recommend that you get hold, that you talk to a financial advisor of some variety and try and talk to a few more companies and see what is the best deal that you can get. Unfortunately, given the rather specific nature of this query, it's hard for me to be completely accurate and on the ball on this answer. I think the answer will lie in being able to talk to at least 2 or 3 of the large insurers and the health insurers and see what is the best that can be done in this particular situation.
Okay, all right. So yeah, it's essentially a very unique situation. Thalassemia is not exactly a disease that's very common. So you may have you may find a lack of insurers as well that may be covering this disease. Speak to a financial advisor. Speak to some of the big insurance companies as well. They'll surely help you out. Thank you, Alok, for joining in on the phone line. We'll take a very quick break right here on the Money Show, NSE Prosperous India Special. Do come right back. We'll continue answering questions and queries. back. You're watching The Money Show, NSE Prosperous India special right here on ET Now, where we are discussing everything to do with critical insurance covers. Sumit, I would just like to ask you that for everyone who is now looking to buy an insurance cover, regardless of their age, what are some key pointers that they should look at when picking out the insurance cover? I think from our previous query, one thing is certain, that you must definitely look at the sort of diseases that particular cover, that particular policy will be able to cover.
Fair enough, and that's a good question, Veena. I think there are 2 or 3 key things that anybody should look at while looking to buy a critical insurance cover. I think the first thing that you need to look at is, what are you looking to cover yourself for? There are multiple options in the market. There are options that will give you coverage against 25, 30, 35 diseases, sometimes even as high as 50. There are others which are very focused. For example, we've just launched a product called Health Shield, and that focuses almost exclusively on cancer, heart diseases, or a combination of the two. So both of those, there's a wide spectrum of variety that is kind of available in the market. Obviously, the choices vary. If you are covered for more, you're covered for more diseases, those are typically going to cost you a little bit more. If you're covered for lesser number of diseases, those are going to cost you lesser. Now, if, for example, you have a genetic disposition of some variety or a family history of some variety of certain kinds, and you know that, for example, heart diseases is something that, let's say, runs in a family, then you may choose to go for a cheaper heart cover, but top it up to a significant extent rather than a wider cover with maybe 10 lakh rupee of cover per illness. So, in general, if you have a family history, I would say cover yourself first for that disease where there is a family history of some variety. Otherwise, if there isn't such a history, then you might want to choose a wider level of coverage, a coverage that gives you protection against a higher number of diseases.
Okay.
Again, like...
Sumit, you know what? I'll just interject away and we can continue that answer, because we have Kiran Kapoor from Rajasthan who's joining us live on the phone line. Hi Kiran, what's your question for Sumit?
I have this question that every time I go for Mediclaim or anything, I am not covered under these diseases. But when now when I'm looking at your show and I'm getting to know that we can get covered, so can you tell me where do I go in for which companies or which insurance companies, so they cover me up for these kind of diseases? I don't have any family history of cancer or heart, but still, since I am 72 years old, I want to get myself covered.
Okay, well, ma'am, Sumit Rai is from Edelweiss Tokio Life, so I won't be surprised if there'll be a bit of a bias in his answer. But yes, Sumit, how would you help out Mrs. Kapoor in her question?
So, Kiran, first, I think, ma'am, let me congratulate you. I think making this choice, as you seeing this and realizing the importance of this, is a very, very vital step in going forward and making sure that you protect for your life. So, I think you're making a very wise decision. As far as, choice of coverage goes, the universe is actually quite wide. As Mubina said, I am from Edelweiss Tokio Life, and I can, of course, talk about the kind of coverages that we provide. And as, like I said earlier, we have a health shield which provides cancer and heart care. However, as you said, you don't have a family history of any of these and you might want a wider coverage. There are wider coverages available from almost all the life insurance companies. All of them provide some variety of critical illness cover. If you have a life insurance policy, you might also want to go back to that company from which you have the life insurance policy, because they might be able to offer you a critical illness rider, which can also help you in the same situation. And that sometimes will work out slightly cheaper also. So those are the options that are available to you. You could, easily go and search across the various life insurance companies. To my knowledge, there are at least 12 or 13 companies that are currently offering fairly comprehensive critical illness coverages. Similarly, critical illness covers may also be aware from some of the standalone health insurance companies or even the GI companies. You might find them there, but life insurance companies usually have a wider spectrum of diseases that they cover through this. So those are some of your options. Like I said, I would also suggest that you take a look at your life insurance cover if you have right now. Maybe you can, at a cheaper cost, add a rider there, and that might also help you. So those are some of the options that you have.
Kapoor, I hope Sumit has been able to answer your query. There's a whole host of products available out there. He just listed out some products that Edelweiss Tokio as well has introduced, and I hope you are able to take your personal finance journey forward with the Money Show. Okay, we just have time for one more question. Okay, we have Sudharkar who's joining us on the phone line as well. He's from Bengaluru. Hi Sudharkar, good evening. What's your question for Sumit?
Good evening. I am 67 years.
Okay.
I am 67 years old. I am on treatment for heart disease as well as prostate, and
Okay.
it is long-term treatment. Is there any service provider? All your policies, they cover only after hospitalization or post-hospitalization. But is there any policy which covers for all my expenses towards tests, medication, repeatedly maybe every quarter or every month? So is there any service provider who can give me a policy to cover these expenses?
Okay,
Thank you.
All right, Sumit, all-in-one is essentially what he wants, right from medicines to hospitalization, everything. And I'm sure, of course, a lot of patients have enough to worry as opposed to paying the bills off of their doctors and their, hospitals. So what would you recommend, he takes, Sudharkar take?
I would recommend that you talk to one of the general insurance companies that would have a more wider coverage of this kind of product for you. My fear though is that at 67 you might find it, and with your history of medical records as you describe them on your call, you will probably find coverage a little bit difficult to obtain, but some of the general insurance companies may be able to help you. Again, as far as I can recall, I don't recall a specific product from a specific company that I can think of that might be able to help you. You will have to talk to some of the general insurance companies and see whether they would be able to do something of the variety. Most of the policies actually, so if you think of Mediclaim, for example, or indemnity as we call them in the industry, they will usually cover you for your in-hospital stay. They don't cover you for the various other, out-of-hospital expenses and stuff like that. So it might be a little bit difficult, but some amount of research may help you come with somebody who may not be able to meet exactly all your needs, but may actually be able to meet at least some of your needs. I would suggest, like I said, to look at products from some of the general insurance companies. They might be better positioned to cover this.
Unfortunately, Mr. Sudharkar, it will be difficult for you to get complete 100% coverage for all your expenses. But yeah, maybe a bit of research will help you to cover most of it. At least your in-hospital charges would be covered. That's what Sumit is recommending. I hope he's been able to answer your question. On that note, thank you to everyone for tuning in and watching the Money Show, NSE Prosperous India special. We've spoken about critical illnesses policies today. And Sumit, thank you for so patiently answering all the questions and queries we've received from our viewers. We will wrap it up. Thank you for watching.